Is it really worth buying an Apple TV, and what's next for the platform? I'm iCave Dave, and I simplify Apple so that everything just works for you. And if you want the latest Apple news, leaks and rumours every weekday at 12 UTC, like the video, subscribe to this channel and ring my bell. And in today's show, as usual on a Monday, we are breaking down Mark Gurman's hot take after the gem that was what if iPhones had USB-C last week. This is what we have to talk about today. Mark Gurman has said that Apple TV isn't that much better than the other stuff that is cheaper. Now, I understand there's a news drought, and I understand that Mark has committed, in the middle of a news drought, to putting out a weekly newsletter, but it would be great if he had something to say in one of them. But let's get into what he said. Anyway, what could be next for Apple TV? So he's been talking a little bit about their combination of a HomePod and Apple TV kind of hybrid, that maybe has an iPad built in as well. It's maybe this kind of visual HomePod type thing, but that's not what I get from what's being talked about. Now, our favourite render boy, Apple Tomorrow, has been looking at some of this as part of an Apple Scoop article that he's working on, so definitely go and give them a follow, as they've got a really great concept on the way there. However, what Mark did mention is that Apple is working on the next generation of Apple TV, calling it a hybrid HomePod Apple TV combo. He's also saying it's unlikely to launch until 2023. Now, we've talked in the past about what Apple could do with Apple TV, and the combination of HomePod Apple TV says to me one thing: a soundbar. Many, if not most, TV's internal speakers do suck. So a lot of people invest in a soundbar to add on to their home theatre setup, and we know that Apple can do huge audio from small spaces based on what the original HomePod did. Allow that soundbar to add in the Apple TV functionality to your home's biggest screen, and you've got an easy choice for people to buy. But add to that, we could connect it wirelessly to any HomePods or HomePod minis that are in the room, and using the tech from the original HomePod to optimise the collective sound for that room. At the point of setup, all you do is hit the setup button, it makes some weird noises, listens to how the sound bounces around your room, and completely optimises the sound so that it just works from everywhere. That's basically sending out some pulses of sound, listening using its own onboard microphones, which again, you would have multiple microphones to play with as well if you were using multiple HomePods, and maybe you could even put an iPhone in the space where you'll be sitting as the kind of hub microphone. I think the way that Apple tends to work is kind of optimizing how its different hardware works together. And in the same way that we can now calibrate the color coming out of an Apple TV box onto any TV panel in the world using the cameras on your iPhone, I think that's just a forebearer for what they could do with audio as well. I think that would be pretty compelling. So that soundbar Apple TV, let's let that be the true hub for home automation in your home. Apple's already started adding features like picture-in-picture for video security, doorbells and cameras that detect movement. But again, it would be awesome to have the option of really getting deep in HomeKit device management here, even to the point of building a 3D model of your home using the LiDAR on any of the iPhones or iPads with the feature, to give you a great reference for where all of your HomeKit devices are within the space. You could literally walk around your home with your iPhone held up, it scans your home, it basically builds this 3D map that you can then use as your model that kind of sits within HomeKit, and that's where you place all of your devices. So you could go from just having like room setups to having specific lights in specific corners, and the phones know where everything is, and HomeKit itself can kind of architect things on a little bit more of a granular level. Now, that soundbar could also have both FaceTime and TrueDepth cameras built in for, of course, FaceTime calls, but also potentially Kinect style gaming using the TrueDepth camera just as the iPhones does for emoji animation in real time, but for your entire body. And the company that actually made Kinect, the original Kinect, is the company that Apple bought in order to get Face ID and Memoji stuff working, so that kind of makes a lot of sense when you think about it like that. And of course, by 2023, we could be looking at having some of Apple's headsets available, the VR headset or the AR glasses that we've been talking about in the past. All of this stuff is going to be a lot closer in the pipeline if it's not already been released. So being able to motion track within the room, regardless of whether you're actually watching stuff on the TV, but just being able to have that kind of external point that is watching your movements in order to translate them into a game potentially on the headset would be pretty awesome. Of course, there is another option here. The Apple TV could be more of a very lightweight home computing option. So just as we have the Mac that started off with pages and numbers and Keynote, what if the Apple TV was able to have its own Files app so that you were able to work on things like documents and do kind of lightweight computing tasks? Now, I would expect it to be more iPad style, where you have one app on the screen at a time, than Mac style with floating windows. But you could quite easily open a Pages document on the screen and use your phone to make edits on it. You could use the top of your iPhone as a trackpad if you wanted to, or you could potentially just do it the usual way with the keyboard on your iPhone and do the long press to move the cursor around. But I think it would be quite compelling as well to be able to open your Keynote documents, for example, on an Apple TV. So if you were using the Apple TV as a conference thing, you could log into your iCloud account and just pull up your presentation directly on there using your phone as a remote, rather than trying to AirPlay your entire presentation to it. That seems like something that would also make sense. But again, iMovie could be a really good experience on that large screen in your lounge, even if it is more akin to the iPhone and iPad version of it, and you are using your iPhone or your iPad as a controller. But what do you think? Which way do you think Apple will go? Will they add it to a productivity side of things? Could it just be a distributed small Mac that runs on A-series chips that you have on different computers, different TV screens around your house? Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. The other thing I just wanted to touch on is, obviously, last week we were talking about the CSAM protections that Apple were putting in. I'll put a link to the whole video up here because I don't want to go into too much detail on it, but there has been some opposition to it, and I understand why, because people feel like it's an invasion of privacy when their photo library is getting scanned. This is not the case. Now, just to be 100% clear on this, because I know there's been some confusion and Apple's been very clear on it, but they've used quite technical language in some places. My best understanding of this is that Apple is comparing a number that is generated from known image files to numbers on your system to see if you have those exact files. They're not scanning the pictures that are on there using any sort of AI to look for questionable material. That's not how it works. For the CSAM detection, it is purely these files that already exist out in the world that are known to be CSAM images, and basically Apple is just checking if those files that already existed are on your system, because in the vast majority of cases, it's these same images that are being passed around. That would be a very, very clear indicator, if multiple of those images are found on a device, that there is an issue with that person. So that's when it then gets manually reviewed. Until then, nobody is looking at your images. Apple is not scanning your images. Apple is not using AI to detect what is in your images. They are simply checking them against a database of images that are already known. That's it. And they're not even checking the individual images. They're checking a digital fingerprint of those files. That's basically it. They're not looking at what's in any pictures. However, of course, unbelievably, Tim Sweeney of Epic Games thinks that this is horrendous. There's no way that this should ever be allowed, and he is entirely neutral. As we all know, he's definitely not got any skin in the game for Apple to get some bad publicity. But anyway, we're going to move into iCave Answers now. There's a couple of questions about the iCaveversary, which is coming up like less than a week away now, is our big event. So let's get straight into it with a question from Yuritech, who asks, iCave Answers, since it's 6 days left till iCaveversary, I dare you to mention all the guests that will appear in the show. Dare accepted. So far, and these are not confirmed, these are people that have agreed to come on. Tech Harmoon, Apple Tomorrow, Tech Hyped, Yuritech, Half Man Half Tech, Max Balzar, Sanchit Garg, Techaruz, Alt Tech Dad, Archie G, Constant Geekery, Saran Bites, Travis MCP, Greg's Gadgets, Brian Tong, Luke Miani, and John Prosser. So as you can see, it is a massive list of people. I'm going to be following up with everyone this week to try and arrange timings for stuff. It won't be a published timings because we know that things are going to be kind of moving around a little bit, but we will have kind of a set of timings in our heads. Now, I do want to get you guys involved in the show, so please, if you want to ask any questions on the show, if you want to come on as a kind of guest, as a kind of video guest particularly, make sure you have a Twitter account. I know a lot of people don't use Twitter. If you want to be on the show, you will need to have a Twitter account. You will need to have your DMs open, because the whole point is that you are going to ask your questions on the show, and I will need to be able to send you a link to join the show. That is going to be the easiest way for me to do it, and I will not be going into like 5 or 6 different ways of inviting people on. Make sure if you want to jump on the show during the live stream, which is 6 hours long on August the 15th, you can find the link to it up here, and make sure you've hit the reminders. And please tell your friends about it, because it's going to be epic. You will need to have a Twitter account, so please make sure you do. And follow me, obviously. Lit8 asks, iCave Answers, will you start accepting iCave Answers in the live chat? So, for the premieres that we do, it should be pointed out that I record the video ahead of time, so I can't take questions from the live chat at that point. However, when we're doing actual live videos, absolutely, we're always doing that. That's literally what I do the live streams for. So when we're actually live, yes, 100%. When I'm doing a premiere, can't do that. And the difficulty is if you put them in the live chat, when I come to set up the next show, I don't see them. So if you've got a question that you want me to answer after the fact, put it down in the comments section with iCave Answers. Joe, hashtag iCave Answers. If you think that the M1X MacBook Pros are to be unveiled at the iPhone 13 event in September, do you also think they'll be shipped in October solely due to the press media coverage that will be clashing between the MacBook Pro and the iPhone 13? I'm saying this because the iPad Air 4 was unveiled at the September event, but launched after the iPhone 12 lineup. So I know what you're asking here. The iPad Air 4 actually shipped on the same day as the first iPhones. Basically, I think because they don't want to have the A14 chips out there in an iPad before it arrived with people in the iPhones. But in this case, I think what they will most likely do is do the iPhone launch as normal, so it's, let's say, September the 14th, which is what we expect. September the 14th is the announcement. Orders go live that Friday. They ship the following Friday. I think they might open pre-orders for the MacBooks the week after that, and then they ship a week after that. So there's a 2-week gap in terms of hardware landing with people. Yes, that makes a lot of sense to me, because it would make sense for Apple to not want all of these devices landing with online influencers, etc. at the same time. I think you're absolutely right. They will want to spread out that news coverage a little bit more. Also from Joe, iCave Answers, what will you pick? The included lightning cable from the 24-inch M1 iMac to be sold separately, or would you like Apple to switch to USB-C on the iPhone 13 Pro and iPhone 13 Pro Max? Taylosive Tech has pointed out the idea for only the Pro models should get USB-C. Honestly, I don't care about USB-C. I've said this a bajillion times, and I think Apple would actually get more backlash for changing to USB-C at this point than they would get any benefit from it. There is very little benefit from switching from Lightning to USB-C. I know some people have got USB-C chargers knocking around. That's great. Not everyone does. People that have been in iPhones for a long time, the amount of backlash that we got when we went from these big old 30-pin connectors to go into Lightning, which is obviously a far superior connector, was massive, because people were like, oh, I've already got this iPod dock, and I've already got this, and I've already got that, and I've already got all these cables. The vast majority of the public, probably 95% of the people who buy iPhones, would be more pissed off that we changed it to USB-C than the 2% of people online that are shouting about how Apple is way behind by using Lightning when USB-C exists. Guys, they're going to get rid of all the ports very, very soon. MagSafe is here for a reason. That is going to be the main connector. Don't expect to have holes in next year's iPhone. Ryan Ballinger asks, iCave Answers, do you think that Apple will release AirPods Max 2 next year? Okay, that's an interesting one. Now, we had heard that there were 2 versions of AirPods Max on the way at the time. When we initially heard about AirPods Max, we did hear that there were 2 versions in the works. So there was going to be this premium version that we've got, and potentially a sporty kind of version that was going to be more akin to the Beats in terms of the build quality, but also still with the same sound quality. Rumours seem to have gone very, very quiet on that, not just on that, but obviously on everything right now. But I don't think it's something that needs an update next year. I think maybe in 3 years from the original release, we might start to see something about a new version. But honestly, I don't think we've even seen the capability of these yet, because as we've heard in the past, there is a potential that Apple might switch to using Wi-Fi AirPlay for their AirPods within the hardware that they already have, in order to bring lossless to what we already have in terms of hardware. So I think that is probably going to be the first thing to look forward to, and then potentially down the line, yeah, we might see some new ones, but I don't think there's any rush on them. Team Kinetics asks, iCave Answers, as we're getting closer to the arrival of M1X with up-to-date leaks and rumours, do you have any thoughts on pricing and potential options? Will the 14-inch MacBook Pro get the option of more GPU cores? What will be the base specs? how much do you think the upgrades will be? Yes, I'm absolutely desperate to get my hands on the 14-inch MacBook Pros. So I do think that we're going to see $17.99 as the starting point for these, which makes a lot of sense because that is the upgraded 4-port MacBook Pro that we've got right now, which is basically the higher spec processors version, although those higher spec processors still a lot slower than M1. But I do think that we're going to start at $17.99 and $23.99 for the 16-inch. I think the base model of the 14-inch is going to start with the 16-core GPU. There may be an option to upgrade to the 32. I really don't know. I would think that might be like probably not a $400 upgrade, but maybe a $200 upgrade on that, which is probably money well spent. The 16-inch, however, I do think that that's going to start with the 32-core, which means that if you were going to go from $17.99, so $1,800 up to $2,400, and you're only charging $400 for the graphics thing, you basically then only paying $200 different to get the larger chassis, which doesn't quite seem right to me. So, I mean, that's a possibility though. So it could be that we do $400 for the graphics upgrade, $200 again for memory upgrades, and the same for the storage upgrades as we have right now. I would hope that they're going to start on 512 gigs of storage, but I have a strange feeling they will probably start on 256, just like the current ones. But that's my thoughts, and again, we're hoping that we're going to see this in September. That's what it looks like from the EEC database leaks. It looks like that event is most likely going to be iPhones, Apple Watches, and MacBook Pros. Also from Team Kinetics, iCave answers, do you think a live-action Omega will show up in the Book of Boba Fett? I don't know what any of those words mean, so I'm going to move swiftly on. Sorry, I'm not a Star Warer. Thomas Rundle, iCave answers, are 12 mini cases expected to work on the 12S mini or 13 mini, and vice versa, please? Really don't know on this one because it looks like they're changing the camera layout a bit, but it looks like on the smaller ones, the camera bump is still going to be the same size. So if you've got a case that just goes around the outside of the camera bump, you should be fine. If you've got a case that goes around the lenses within the camera bump and is quite fitted to those, it's definitely not going to fit. So it's going to depend from case to case. Now, there is a possibility that they make the camera bump itself larger. It looks like they're only doing that on the Pros, not on the regular phones, but we never know until they actually come out. And also, there have been rumours about some of the phones being slightly thicker. That might just be the Pros. I'm not 100% sure on that, but that might also be a consideration. But Apple might have been quite clever because their new I'm pretty sure that the MagSafe cases don't wrap around the front, so they might still be compatible, but maybe most third-party ones that don't attach using magnets might not be. So that's it for this week's show, guys. Don't forget, make sure you have your reminders on for iCaversary. Start sharing it amongst your friends because it's going to be an epic show, and we will see you in the next one.